What is going on, everybody, and welcome to another Beta Memoirs. And today was an interesting day. There was a lot of chop. We had some individual stocks actually running quite well today. But nonetheless, we are getting ready for bigger earnings coming up next week. That's ultimately what we're preparing for. The levels at which the SPY and QQQ are sitting at interesting levels. They could go either way. With everything that I've been talking about up to this point, I think a lot of it is setting up for a major bull run that is going to be extremely parabolic. But being said, you can't not manage risk. To being said, there's a lot of fluctuation in the market. There's a lot of looks like everything's kind of getting back to normal. Tech has been running, doing its thing. Value stocks took a major hit today, actually pulled a lot of the market down today. But tech was very much alive and very much holding, at least big tech was. I know some of the smaller tech was not. Some of the smaller tech actually pulled back quite a bit. But being said, I think another big thing to understand is that next week we start getting into some more earnings. Banks have been doing well in the earnings, which is definitely a positive sign. And then we do have Netflix rolling up here in, I believe, in another week here. Netflix is going to be going. But being said, I think Netflix is actually, let me see here. I think Netflix is actually next week. So once Netflix actually reports, that'll be something to keep in mind, because once they do report, I think we're going to start running. If they do well, we're definitely next Tuesday. Netflix, you got J&J next week as well. You got United on Monday, Coca-Cola Monday. You got Verizon, Chipotle on Wednesday. You got Intel, you got AT&T next week, American Express. So you got a lot of big players next week. So that is something to keep in mind. And what we're about ready to see. Some of the setups I have here. Again, I wouldn't be surprised if we do pull back tomorrow. It is Take Profit Friday, going into the next week. So that is something definitely keep in mind that I think is really going to change everything. That being said, let me go ahead and pull up the chart for today. So again, we are kind of hitting that trend line on the daily. It does look on the hourly like we've broken it. Again, it's hard to tell, especially when it's a daily trend line, but ultimately it looks like we're ready to start moving up. I wouldn't be surprised if we ran a little bit tonight and pulled back. Ultimately, I would like a little bit of a pullback going into tomorrow, hopefully get position. But ultimately, there's definitely a change in the market, right? With all the Bitcoin and the Coinbase and all that IPOing, there's been a major shift in the way just all these different industries are playing. Value stocks obviously took a major hit today with a lot of the vaccine news and stuff like that. But you also have, again, tech, which is coming back to life. A lot of the major players that we talked about before, when we talked about Apple, Facebook, and Amazon, and Microsoft have also been all running. They continue to run and hold strong today, going into earnings. Again, we only got a couple of weeks before their earnings actually hits, and the run-ups are going to be big. But being said, so the SPY is looking pretty good. Still at that point. So this is what kind of concerned me a little bit, was the fact that you got QQQ it can't break this resistance. So that might be an issue, or we might just play range, which might more than likely be what is going to happen. I wouldn't be surprised if we actually sell off tomorrow down into this bottom part of the range here, and then kind of play sideways going into next week, right? And then once we get that first Netflix earnings, if they do very well in the earnings, I think that is going to lead the way, and that's going to kickstart everything. They get good bank stuff, but ultimately I think what is going to make the biggest difference here is going to be what happens with Netflix. But being said, let's get into the watch list for tonight. Again, the watch list is kind of short today. These are all, again, good daily setups going into next week. Take it or leave it. So being said, the first one we have is Tesla. Tesla strong today. I played it a little bit. I caught it down in the zone today, and I rode it up quite a bit. But that was about it. After that particular scalp today, I really just kind of watched it, and it hovered here. I wanted it down here at this 702 mark, but it just didn't happen. It actually kept pushing. It was battling this 50 all day. Yeah, it looks like actually after hours, I was waiting for it to break over the middle Bollinger Band and get back over this 20. Might actually gap up tomorrow. So if this does gap up tomorrow, I'll be looking for Tesla to pull back. And that's what I'll take an entry and try to ride into earnings, or do a nightly swing at least on every gap and pull back. Try to do nightly swings is what I am attempting to do on Tesla. Being said, the next one I got is Airbnb. This one is beaten down on the daily. It doesn't look, on the daily, it's actually sitting on the trend or close to the trend line. It may have actually tagged it there, but it doesn't look the greatest. We are still in kind of a downward channel here. But being said, I think Airbnb is ready for liftoff going into these earnings runs. And I think it's been consolidating quite a bit on this bottom level. That's why I took a position in this. I was actually up pretty nicely here. I didn't take profit though. I was actually doing something else, but I think this is really going to gap over this and start running, because it is holding this level extremely well. So that's something to keep in mind. You don't want it to really break below this 173 mark, even though this pullback here was bought up very quickly. Again, I think that was testing that trend line. But I do like Airbnb for tomorrow. Etsy is the other one I have that does look good. Currently on the hourly, we're looking for it to kind of touch base back at the 200, which I believe that's also this purple line I have here is the daily line. If you look back on the daily, that puts us back at under all this support right here, which would be fantastic. If you can get an entry on Etsy right here, then you got earnings coming up on May 5th. I think it will have a huge earnings. And again, you still have a lot of runway going back to all-time highs at 251. So I like Etsy for tomorrow. U is another one. With everything that's been going on with tech, again, some of the smaller tech has been getting kind of crushed. But it did break out of this wedge, and it has a ton of support here, which I do really like on the daily. And then on the hourly, it looks like a lot of chop, so you may have to be patient with this one, either shares or longer contracts. But ultimately, I think you can start pushing up. It is one I've been kind of discussing a lot for a long time. I do like the U, but it does need to start making its move back up. It's been really battling around this $100 mark, especially with everything that's been going on. So, but the next one I do have is Planet 13. This one here, again, we had the big brush up here for earnings. It did well, and then it is starting to pull back, and it seems like it's starting to cool down. But if you do look on the daily, we are actually looking good right now. We're at perfect support right now. So we could probably get a bounce off this. The market wants to start pushing up, and the recovery stocks and stuff like this. Again, I think this was probably going to be one of the better recovery stocks out of all of them, just as long as there's no more virus news or anything like that. But I think we get a good, nice bounce off of this and start moving our way back up. I still have shares in this in my one of my longer term holds for the year, so I still really like Planet 13. Again, I don't believe there's options on this one, so I've only been playing shares. But ultimately, let's see, what else do we got? We got BA. BA is going to be a tricky one for tomorrow. It did sell off quite a bit today, which I didn't really like. I think there was some negative news today, but it broke out of the trend. It retested it. It's kind of holding it, but it's actually a really good support. So if we can stay above this 253.53 mark, ultimately I think we can start making our way back up to making some ground back to this 257, if not higher, going into earnings, which is on the 28th of this month. So the 28th has got a lot of big earnings. So just keep that in mind. You know, all these stuff are going to start ramping up and start really making bigger moves to the upside because of that. I think tomorrow is going to be the setup before we really start building premium and start moving our way up for some of these bigger tech companies. And then the last one I have for you is Peloton. I don't typically play Peloton, but the setup here is actually quite interesting. There is a lot of support here. One thing you want to keep in mind is you want to stay above that 120.34 mark. If we can open up the daily above that, I think we got a lot of room to run to make up some ground. So this is one thing I want to watch for tomorrow and see where that is at. Because if we can get something there, I think we can. It definitely might be worth playing Peloton. I haven't played it. It's made some very great and parabolic moves. So that's one thing to keep in mind. Again, so you got this solid support right here. Again, you don't want it to go past that 200 moving average. I know it's starting to move up, so it's starting to provide more support. It is consolidating, which is nice to see. So that is something to definitely keep in mind. But ultimately, that's what I got for you guys. It is Take Profit Friday, so be careful, be mindful. Give it time in the morning, especially on Fridays. There's a lot of selling and quick moves in the morning, especially if you're new to trading or investing or anything like that, trying to get in a position. Give it at least the first 15, 20 minutes. Let all the craziness kind of die down and then look for a position at that point. But remember to hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't done so already. Take care, manage risk, and I'll talk to you guys soon.